Greetings, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland, and there you can see the United States Embassy in London. So the US ambassador at the Court of St. James is Woody Johnson. He's been on post since 2018, appointed by President Trump. Because ambassadors to the UK, I always have the official title, ambassador to the Court of St. James, since the St. James's Palace is the official residence of the British royal family. The House of Windsor doesn't spend very much time in St. James's Palace because it's rather pokey and old, and it's just across the street from Buckingham Palace. But nevertheless, that remains their official residence, even though very few people are aware of that. Anyway, this is 9 Elms Lane, where it's on. We're just south of the Thames. I'll show you the Thames in a moment. You see Old Glory fluttering in a mild zephyr just now, and it really is a zephyr because west is that away. This is the 8th location that the US Embassy has had in London since diplomatic relations were established in 1785, when John Adams came out here to be the first American minister. They'd used the word ambassador for some time after that, and indeed they didn't say embassy, they called it a legation until the late 19th century. Lots of countries called things legations, like the UK had a legation in Abyssinia and so forth, related to like legate, as in, well, or delegate, like one who is sent. So this site was only opened at all in 2017 for the Chancery section, and then the formal opening was 2018. Previously, the US Embassy was on Grosvenor Square, which was north of the River Thames, owned by the Duke of Westminster. It was there from 1960 to 2018. Now, Grosvenor Square is indeed named after the Duke of Westminster's family. His surname is called Grosvenor, and the Grosvenor's policy is they never ever sell. They own so much of Westminster back when it was countryside since the Middle Ages. And the United States likes to own its embassy properties outright. I presume they own this one. And Donald Trump came for the formal opening. Anyway, the lease was coming to an end. Could they extend it? They looked around. There were rumours about them wanting Kensington Palace, but both Buckingham Palace and the United States government said that was a lie. And they put in a bid for the old Chelsea Barracks site, which was demolished, turned into luxury housing, which is a bit north of the Thames. Didn't get that one, so they got this one. Now, Trump, he castigated Obama for this very poor deal, as Trump thought it was. What a deal maker Trump is to have gone bankrupt so many times. But the agreement was actually made under George W. Bush. Presumably, Obama could have cancelled it. Might have cost some money in penalty fees or something like that, but decided to go ahead with it. And Trump, he could have pulled out. They were okay. 2017 was when they actually shifted here under his presidency, the Chancery. 2018 was the formal opening. He could have said, we're not doing it, you're going somewhere else. So he refused to take responsibility for a decision which ultimately was his, and he could have changed. Yeah, it's all very new build around here. I don't know what was on the site beforehand. There are lots of blocks of flats, quite luxury flats, finished only in the past few years, overlooking the Thames. So there are these curious geometric shapes on the exterior, and I've seen out the US Embassy in Moscow, and they have similar shapes. I've been told that it's a counter-surveillance measure. It's difficult to somehow listen in, I don't know what, eavesdropping material that frustrates, or cameras or something like that. That's why it's not solely decorative. It might be a counter-terrorist measure as well. Doesn't somehow absorb the shock wave of a bomb blast, just possibly. Anything else about the US Embassy? Obviously, it's very tight security to get in. It used to be very lax in the old days, like the US Embassy. Ooh, there's a British bulldog down there. Can you see him? Can you see him? I can see him. I thought, well, what a contrast with the US Embassy. I don't know how we came with the symbol of the British Isles. So back to this, yeah, Grosvenor Square. In the 90s, any American in town could just show up on the 4th of July for a garden party. But gone are those days. You probably have to have a cavity search to get in now. I've never been in. That old Grosvenor Square site, I'm not sure what's happened with that. I'll show you things from other angles. Oh yeah, I was saying that the River Thames is right behind me. So they have a fabulous view over the Thames. And the US Ambassador's residence is quite some distance away. It's Winfield House on the northern edge of Regent's Park. And that's been the US Ambassador's residence since the 1930s. I'm not sure why it's called Winfield House, not after Winfield Scott, I don't think. And that was owned by Barbara Hutton. You may have seen Poor Little Rich Girl, that 1980s film. Is it Faye Dunaway is the star? About the heir to the Woolworth fortune, who inherited millions of dollars during the Great Depression from her grandfather, who'd founded Woolworths. Her parents had died when she was very little. So Barbara Hutton, who married 8 times, had only 1 child. But anyway, she was foolishly generous sometimes, and she showed great liberality in donating her London residence to the United States as an ambassador's residence. Soldiers got sealed off behind high walls. When Trump visited this past June, there were lots of armed police around there, because in the United Kingdom, police are not usually armed. They have to have special firearms training if they're going to carry a gun. They usually carry tasers and other things. So the idea is to resolve these situations with less than lethal force. Might sound a bit lax, so the criminals have guns anyway. Say, well, it's moronic because the police officer's just going to get killed. But you could still incapacitate someone with a taser. No need to actually kill them. The idea of those guns raise the level of violence we have to go for lethality. We can't resolve it with a lesser use of force. They better use minimum force here. That's why the police shooting an unarmed person here is very rare indeed. Once every several years. Obviously better if it was never at all, but we've got to be realistic, it's not going to be never. Okay, so that is the US Embassy in the United Kingdom. This area called Battersea, just south of the Thames. You can see some of the towers of Battersea Power Station. It was on the front cover of some album in the early 1980s. Who was it by? Not The Who. Pink Floyd, one of those. Alright, that's enough from me. I'm George from Ireland, so follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Book online lessons with me in history and politics, English literature, religious studies, law, French, geography, and choose me as your tour guide in Londonia. Toodaloo.